Citation Barigani.
Assalamu alaikum. Shalom.
Hello. What's up?
Oh, what's up?
What's up?
I'm glad that everybody's here for our second portion of our program for this Sunday, which is a continuation of what we started about 8 or 9 months ago. We started with Mama Kalale on family, and our next person that we had, I shouldn't even call his name, but he was teaching us how to eat to live. We spoiled that today, that fried chicken and macaroni and cheese. So we didn't learn that lesson very well, we were really hard here. But anyhow, and our third convener will be on culture. Now this whole segment is called introducing our people to leadership. To know all these different things that in this cycle, it will help us navigate leadership. And if you don't know your culture, the rest of it don't mean nothing anyway. If you're talking about leading us, where are you going to lead us to if you don't know? Without any delay, I will have to call up Brother Kanami. He's the one that's in charge of this segment. He's a good, strong African brother. And when we was having this thing going, he was the only one that came to my mind when I thought about culture. I don't know why, but I think it's got something to do with his name. Well, come on up, brother.
All right. Hotel family, Barigani.
Citation.
I'll also greet you in my family, one of my family languages, which is Yoruba. Yoruba for good afternoon is Ika Song. So when I say Ika Song, you can say Ika Song back to me. Ika Song?
Ika Song.
Yeah. Yoruba is one of the big ethnic groups in West Africa. So when Brother Kofi asked me to do a piece on culture, then I thought about things in my training that I had, and I was determined to know that it had to begin with our beginnings, our mythology. So our session today will deal with mythology, what mythology means and why we need it. But before we continue that, Brother Mari, I asked Brother Mari to join me in this to do something from the Kemetic side, so we're gonna have like on the east side and the west side. But Brother Mari's gonna do the libation. Your brother's gonna come up and give us a libation before we continue.
In the tradition of our African ancestors, may I have permission for my elders to speak?
Yay, Bo.
Duawu is a term that's used in the East African Kemetic language. It simply means thank you. Thank you very much. When you say dua, that means thank you. Duawu means thank you very much. That's our ancient, sacred African language in our valley. We are another African, very important part of our culture. And by the way, my name is Amari Seneferu. I'm a Pan-African Garveyite and Kemetic Saint, dedicated to the resurrection of African people, dedicated to the resurrection of African spirituality. Because as a part of that culture, I think African spirituality is the DNA of African culture. In your spirituality is where you get a lot of your names. People that are Christian, they name their children Joe, some people name their children Abraham, Jacob. So you've been naming your children based upon your spiritual orientation. We wanted to remind you that as African people, and he said that he's using this structure as a format for leadership. It is important that you know what the African traditions are, what the African spiritual structures are, what the African cosmologies are, so that you would be able to recreate a new African person based upon your own spiritual and agricultural tradition. So a part of that tradition is pouring libation, a very important part. You'll learn that in all African cultures, this is a common
What
denominator.
he does
Common
libation,
thread
you gotta
is that we
stand.
pour libation.
You need some more
Some people may ask, well, why do you pour libation? Well, we pour libation because this is the African way of communicating with the ancestors. The water works as a conduit because, you know, for those who do electrical work, you know that copper wire is the best conduit for carrying electricity from one point to the other. So because our bodies are made up of probably 70% water, and that the universe is also made up of probably 70% of hydrogen, which is the base, big part of the basis of water, that we say that to communicate with the ancestors, you have to use this H2O as a conduit for reaching our ancestors, which I think is a brilliant creation by our African ancestors. So we pour libation in the tradition of our African people. And I'm going to say it in the ancient African Nile Valley language, and I'll translate it into English. I want to say, Anejada 10, Yetef Mut Neter. Salutation of power, mother, father, the chair. I'm speaking of divine, feminine, and masculine essence that's responsible for bringing all life into existence. You see, from the Kemetic perspective, the Creator is both mother and father, father and mother. Yetef Mut, the chair. I want to say
Excuse me.
10, Pijaru Netaru.
Excuse me. When you do libation, I thought we were to stand and honor the ancestors.
If you would like to stand, that would be a great thing to do.
We always stand when you pour libation.
That's a beautiful thing. You see, we learn from each other, and that's how we make each other smarter, brighter, and sharper. So that might be something we'll ask the audience to do every time. So I say, Anejada 10, Yetef Mut Neter. Salutation of power, mother, father, lecture. I'm speaking of divine, feminine, and masculine essence that's responsible for bringing all life into existence. You see, from the Kemetic Nile Valley perspective, the Creator is both mother and father, father and mother. Yetef Mut Neter. I want to say Anejada 10, Pijaru Netaru, salutation of power to the divine forces of nature. I'm talking about the awesome sunlight that sustains us, the air we breathe, the water we drink, and the divine principles that guide our lives and keep our lives in divine order, keeping our lives in a state of what we refer to as Ma'at. I want to say Anejada 10, Tepiwo, Imi Hot, Imi Yaba, Ter to you. Salutation of power to the ancestors, the source of our benevolent bloodline, our wonderful kinky haired, damn near blue, black, and beautiful. Aku or Shepsu, the legendary ones, the ones who blessed us with much more than stoplight, peanut butter, and basketball championships, but who also blessed us with the science of mathematics, astronomy, chemistry, agriculture. And not only that, they blessed us with the science of organized statehood and organized nationhood. And for those reasons and much, much more, we venerate our great African ancestors. I want to say Anejada 10, Tepiwo Ek, salutation of power to your ancestors. I'm talking about your mother that has been deceased, your father that has been deceased, your grandmother, your grandfather, your great-great-grandmother or grandfather, uncles and aunts who has been deceased. We pay homage and pay respect to them, and we call on them to join us in our presence. So if you would like to join in honoring them and inviting them into our presence, feel free to raise your hand and invite your deceased ancestors to be a part, because in our tradition they say if you call on the name of the ancestors, you welcome their spirit into this place. So if anybody would like to welcome
Alberta and Jim Wilson.
Ashe,
Richard Henderson.
Ashe.
Lacey and Annie Mae Roberts.
Can they get Ashe?
Ashe.
Ashe.
Sojourner Truth.
Ashe.
Derek and David Valentine.
Ashe.
Clyde Emerson.
Ashe. Ashe.
Red Penny.
Ashe.
Ashe.
Janine Bolden.
Ashe.
Tom and Lucy Tyler.
Ashe.
Mildred and Lewis Henderson.
Ashe.
Honey Penny.
Ashe.
Carter G. Woodson.
Ashe.
Linda Blair.
Ashe. I'd like to invite Jabari Neferu and my mother, Ada Roberta Harris Morrison.
Ashe.
Ashe.
Mary Williams. Ashe.
Ashe.
Well, I would like to say welcome to all of the beloved spirits of our beloved ancestors into this place to share this great occasion with us in all ways, to guide us, direct us, and be with us. And last but not least, I would like to say a measure of 10 salutation of power to you, brothers and sisters, the thinking, breathing carriers of your ancestors' DNA, the thinking, breathing expressions of God from the African tradition. Because in the African tradition, you are expressions of God, each and every one. So with that said, I'd like to say Ashe to you as well.
Ashe.
Ashe. Ashe.
We'll bring your brother back in and kind of explain what we're going to do. Give a hand to the ancestors.
Permission for my elders to continue.
Yay,
I see
Bo.
somebody out there older than me. As stated before, that in my studies of culture, that we learned that there were criteria for a culture, and in the beginning was we were taught mythology, and the mythology is even before the history. Now history is, we know history is like fact. These are the facts. Okay, this happened, this happened, this happened. Sometimes the mythology may be whatever the mythology may be, but whatever the mythology is, this source, whether we want to call it on the wrong, a word for God in Yoruba, we don't call it Olodumare, we don't call it Nyame, we don't call it God, that we are the energy that God created. God created us. We the original people who came to us like this. But then how did it come to us? So, for example, when I say how did it come to us, raise your hand if you know a story about creation, how life came to be on this planet, if you know one.
Adam and Eve.
Adam and Eve. Yes, sir.
Dogon.
You know the Dogon story. Good. Yes.
The Kemetic.
The Kemetic. Good. Most of us are trained by being born where we've been born into the Adam and Eve story. We know that. I don't know if young children still getting it like we got it, but we got it bad, real bad. We grew up with the brown-haired, blue-eyed Jesus on the wall. You know? So, having said that, it's important for us to know our stories about how life came to be on earth. Personally, whether the story is completely true or not in terms of all its details of all that stuff happened like that, maybe not. Is that really the important thing? The main thing is that it began with us. It's ours. It began with us. And everywhere, all over the African continent, all the people got a story of creation. When the white man came with his Bible, we already had a story. A lot of times the people laughed at their story. They said, man, we already got our story. What is this? We tell this to little children, you know, for soft minds, but we got stuff like this. So what I would like to do is share a story with you that comes from the Yoruba people of West Africa, how they say life came to be on earth. The Yoruba say that long time ago, there was nothing here but water, marsh, and mist. That's it. And far away in the domain we could call it the sky, was Olodumare. Olodumare was there with many Orisha that Olodumare had created, like Eshu Elekba, the divine messenger, who knew all languages, keeper of the key, guardian of the gate, watchman of the room. There was Ogun, the one that Olodumare had given the understanding of how to work with all metals. There was Yemoja, or here in Western Hemisphere, a lot of people say Yemanya, who was the great mother, the mother of the mothers. And there was the one called Obatala. Obatala loved to create. And Obatala appeared from the heavens, the sky above, to this watery, marshy place below. And he thought, Olodumare has given us so many talents, so much. We could go there and make a whole new world, bring life to where there's not only water, marsh, and mist. So Obatala took his thoughts to Olodumare. And Olodumare said, that's fine. It'd be nice to expand some love throughout this what we are creating. But who's gonna do all that work? Obatala pledged that he would. So with Obatala having the blessings of Olodumare, he went to his friend, Orunmila. Orunmila had been given the ability to divine, divination, to see how things may come to be if they are worked right. So Obatala went to his friend, and Orunmila took down his divining trait and 16 palm nuts. And he cast these palm nuts upon the trait, and he marked their meaning. He gathered the palm nuts, cast them several times, and each time he marked the meaning of how they felt. Then he looked at his brother and he said, "This is what you gotta do. You gotta leave from here on a chain made of solid gold. Take with you a snail shell full of sand, a black cat to be your companion, and a palm nut." Obatala thanked his friend, and he went then to all of the Orisha in the kingdom of the sky, and he told him he needed to go. When they found out what his mission was, they gave everything they had. Some gave gold pendants, gold bars, bracelets. They gave their gold. Obatala took this gold to the goldsmith. Goldsmith looked at it and said, "It's not enough. You gotta go get some more." So Obatala went and gathered up some more gold, took that to the goldsmith. Goldsmith said, "Obatala is still not enough gold. The chain will never reach the water." Obatala said, "It's gonna be okay. It's not no more gold in the sky. Everybody done gave all they had. Go ahead and make the chain." So the goldsmith made the chain. When it was finished, Obatala looked at it and said, "It's gotta have a hook at the end." So goldsmith melted down some of the links and he made a hook. Now they were ready. So at the point in time, Orunmila and Obatala went to the place where Obatala was going to descend from the sky. Obatala hooked the chain into the sky. And then Orunmila handed him a big bag. And then after handing him the bag, he handed him everything he was supposed to take to the water below. What was he supposed to take? A what? A black cat? What else? A snail shell full of what? Sand. What else? A palm nut? Something else. Giving y'all a hint. A chicken. A five-toed hen. There.
Just no fried chicken.
I didn't say that. But I left that out. My fault. Five-toed white hen. So having all these things, Obatala began to go down the chain. And he could tell as he went down that chain, he was leaving a place of warmth, love, and light. And he was entering a place of uncertainty. darkness, coldness. Didn't feel too good. He's on a mission, right? So he was going down, 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 down. He reached the end of the chain, and just like the goldsmith said, he was at the end of the chain, but he was not yet at the water's edge. He was trying to figure out what to do next, and then he heard the voice of Arumila. Arumila say, "Pour out the sand." So Obatala poured out the sand. The fan went down across the atmosphere above the water. As soon as this happened, Arumila say, "Let the hen go." Obatala released the hen. The hen started scratching at the sand, scratching at the sand, and scratching at the sand. Everywhere the hen scratched at the sand, land began to get firm. Because the hen scratched unevenly, sometimes you had a plain, then you had a hill, then you had a valley. Obatala looked at this, and then, after he saw the land was moving out far enough, he let go of the chain, and he came down on solid ground. He sent a prayer of thanks up to Olodumare. Then he took the palm nut and put it in the earth. Like all the other things, like the hen, like everything else, it wasn't no regular palm nut. As soon as he put the nut in the ground, palm tree came up. And more palm trees came up. They bore fruit, dropped the palm nuts into the ground. In no time, there was forest, palm tree. Obatala cut down some of the wood from the trees and made a house for himself and his companion, the black cat, to live in. After a while, Olodumare sent Ajemu. Ajemu was the chameleon, and down the gold chain to see what was happening with Obatala. So Ajemu went down the gold chain, found Obatala living in his house, and he approached Obatala. He said, "Ikaso, good afternoon. Bawani." Bawani means, what's happening? What's going on? Olodumare has sent me to see how things are with you. Obatala said, "Well, as you can see, a little land's been made. We got some trees, but everything's dark. This place needs some illumination, some light." So, Ajay will say, "Odabo." He bid us Obatala farewell, and then he walked around the earth. Everywhere he walked, he would walk, and then he'd do that. He push up and down. He's checking to see if if the land is solid enough. If y'all don't notice lizards do that to this day. You see them moving up there? That's called their first moves. He walked all around, checked up, then he went back up the chain. And he reported to Olodumare what Obatala said. And Olodumare said, "Well, what about the land? How's the land?" And Ajay would say, Ife is good, it's sound. It's sound. And since that time, that place where Obatala came down is called Ile Ife. It's still a city in Nigeria today. Okay. So then, Obatala, having got his word successfully back to Olodumare, noticed a change because Olodumare set the earth in motion with other planets that Olodumare had created around the sun. So now there was light in the world. Olodumare sent some trees and some other things, some work for Obatala to do. He wanted him to plant certain trees, specifically the baobab, the iroko, the ayan, and the ebony. Obatala planted all the trees, and in no time there were forests. Olodumare instructed Obatala also to mold human beings out of the earth, out of the clay. And then when he was finished molding them, then Olodumare would turn what he molded into human beings. So Obatala began this work. after he worked for a long time, Obatala is meticulous. I mean, he was making some beautiful beans, man. He's meticulous. He got thirsty. See? So they had this drink in Olaruna. They had to have this drink. They called palm wine. So Obatala went and tapped one of the palm trees and collected the juice and let it ferment. See? And he started drinking. And drinking. And drinking. And drinking. So he got drunk. Then he went back to molding some people. But see, all that meticulousness he had before, it wasn't there no more. I mean, he got to going, man, and made cats with like these big, huge heads. Then he started leaving fingers off, necks out, arms wasn't even, legs wasn't even. He thought he was doing a good job, but because of that substance in him, so when he finished, he sent a prayer up to Oladumare, and then Oladumare know he had done his work. He fell asleep. Right? When Oladumare received the prayer, he turned what Obatala had created into people, into human beings. When Obatala woke, the first people he saw were the ones that he had first created, and it filled him with great joy. They were so beautiful, God. He was meticulous, man. I mean, there was some 5 brothers and sisters. Then he saw the ones he had molded after he started drinking the palm wine. And he was filled with sadness. Some of them couldn't stand up. They had to drag themselves along. And since that day, Obatala and all those that followed the path of Obatala, they swore off any substance that would alter the mind. His followers followed that tradition to this day. The people elected Obatala to be their Oba, which means king, like chief. And Obatala led the people for many generations until he ascended back to Olurum, the kingdom of the sky. And the people continue to do and live as people have done up to this day. And if you go to Nigeria, you can see the city, the ancient city of Ile-Ife. It is there. I've personally been there. It's a real place, and it feels like it too. I should. Any questions on this?
Is there somewhere to read that so we can put it in our mind and one day repeat it?
There is a book that in its singular form is called Origin of Life on Earth.
Okay.
It's a folktale book. There's a book that a lot of books with African folktales,
Okay.
biblical folktales, have that particular story in it. Some people call it the descent from the sky. My version has come from 2 sources: the oral tradition, I mean, just how it's been handed down from hundreds of years from the Yoruba, as well as reading some of the sources. One of the things that we have to be careful with our sources is reading sources that have been tainted with European thought and references. Even our own people, sometimes when we write, if we say, anytime we call, in English we say the word God, anytime we refer to that as he, usually talking about a European influence. Because Africans have always, if anything, I've seen traditionally in Africa more God as a mother than a man. I'm just be straight up what I've seen. I even know some stories that have God as the mother. I've seen that traditionally more than God as the mother. Okay. But more so in this whole balanced form, they say that it is both. So I've noticed this in reading a lot of the literature. It's good to get it from from different sources, but especially I would say from the oral tradition. The oral tradition and what the people themselves hand down and listen to different versions of that, because we are in a situation right now again where a lot of Europeans and a lot of us see the energy and just mesmerized by our folklore, and then they get the stories, and then of course the stories are not coming in like when I'm talking right now English. The Yoruba story, we get really traditional. You don't go to the community. It's coming in Yoruba. Well, then you gotta translate Yoruba. See, so if I translate Yoruba, and then if I'm coming from a Western Christian perspective, and if they say God, well, it's easy for me to say He. If that's my frame of reference. So those kind of things we have to be careful of and constantly cross-reference. But again, the objective of this and this story is not in no way to impart upon you the idea of, oh no, y'all supposed to believe this, and this is how it all came to be, and this is how it started, and it started with the gold chain. No, it ain't about that. It's about us arming our children with stories. Our children with stories when they step out their door, that God starts with them. That's what it's about. And the more different kind of stories they know about that truth, then the stronger we can be. It starts with us. For me, in part of this cultural alignment, is about recognizing our energy and who we are. See, the cultural unity of Africa is about understanding the energies of who we are. Like I've done DNA, I've done different things, I've been told by Africa, a lot of stuff. I know I'm Yoruba. I know that, I've done the research. So I'm sitting up here telling you a story from my ancestors. Straight. At the same time, the cultural unity, just like Brother Meyer put these on the book, that stuff exists in, I call it stuff, no disrespect. It exists in Kemet too. We just call it by different names and different situations. However, our cut into everything, our flavor into everything, depends on our energy and who and what we are and where we come from. Then when we understand, it's easy for our unification to take place. But if we don't have that, if we're not sitting on our well of that, that's when they can knock us over. When we connect back into that, it's powerful. I say this, I say down. This word Ogun, which is one of the ones I mentioned, was Ogun, but for the Yoruba, it is the one that deals with many things. He deals with the metals. The iron, he's the warrior, he's the fighter, but he's also the one that makes the implements that cultivates the fields. So sometimes we think of Ogun, we think of, the water, this, the blood, yeah. That, but also can't do nothing without it because it's the iron. But the greater point I want to make here is, brothers and sisters, in Nigeria, their name is Ogunlade. They tie directly back to the primordial ancestor. It's in their name. But that's just an example. All of our people, it's in all of our, every system like that. That's why it's important for us to know our systems and which ones we belong and how they sit down and how we, that's what makes that. That's what makes that happen. To come from this, to be able to come to that. Okay, so again, I'm gonna say it one more time because I believe in repetition for y'all. We really want to get it. We have to give our children mythological stories about how this world came to be. How we get it? How it come from? I don't know what's happening. Here's one. Here's another, here's another, here's another, here's another. And then compare that to that biblical story and see if ours is not any less than what they trying to shove down our throat with what they talking about. With the Adam and Eve story. Adam and Eve, some words that probably didn't even exist. And we had already been on the planet for no telling how long. Adam and Eve. You understand? Santi Sana, thank you very much.
Oh, brothers and sisters, I love this. I love that brother's teachings. It's a beautiful thing, when we, aspire to be Africans again, because we were taught that, less than 100 years ago, that Africans were savages, and the Africans were ugly, and they were ignorant. They had no history except for the history that white man's presence in Africa. But it's beautiful to see the resurrection of the truth and the details of what our wonderful tradition entails.
How can you be African and not permission to speak?
Oh, you can't say nothing.
I wouldn't know how you could be African and not ask permission to speak of your elders.
I did. Yeah, you're right. I can do it again. May I have permission for my elders to speak again? I did it at the outset.
Yay, bold.
All right. Now here, and that's a beautiful tradition. And notice that people, these are traditions that we're giving to you that we can use and make a part of our beautiful culture that what distinguishes us from other groups. But here in the Ogun, when he talked about working with metal, for people in the East African, you guys ever heard of Pata? Pata, it's saying these traditions, they're interwoven. They have the same spirit. We're talking about spirits and principles, right? Pata, the story of Pata, if you know, that was in the Memphite theology, that they found on the Rosetta Stone, right? Pata was born from the egg of Aset, right? They call it Ptah-Ra, because all of the Kemetic stories, they have a common denominator. They all include Ra, and they include the new, starting out of new. Is everybody familiar with the term new? Show me, raise your hand if you've never heard of it. Okay, in the Kemetic Nile Valley creation story, there's many, because in the Nile Valley you had what you call Sabets. They were like different states. See, matter of fact, the United States didn't come up with the idea of United States. Your ancestors came up with that. We had 42 state-like regions that we call Sabets. Now, in different regions, you had different cosmologies. Just he talked about, we were coming here to share with you some of the African cosmologies. So maybe in some of the southern regions, they might have one cosmology, which means story of creation. In another state, they may have Sabet, they had another story of creation. They have many stories. And I always like to point out, that's what's unique about African people and African spirituality. That what I call religion to me is when you have a people that's bound to a book. So, Western religion requires you to be bound to a book. Western religion, Islam requires you to be bound to the Holy Quran. Christianity bounds you to be bonded to the New Testament. And then Judaism bounds you to the Old Testament. But in our tradition, African spirituality is not bound to one story, right? Because like he said, each and every one of us are different energy, different reflections of the Creator, of the creative essence, the creative energy, right? We look at this word right here. Let me hear y'all say this word right here. Amen. Every single one of those three major religions that are Western, and what I classify as Western is Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. Western. They all use this word, Amen. How many people that don't know, raise your hand if you're not familiar with where this term originated from. It seems like everybody in this room pretty much knows it. This word right here, Amen, which we also pronounce as Amun. It came from the ancient Nile Valley African spiritual tradition, right? But people of today still use this word, Amen. They say it at the end of all their prayers, Amen. But what are you talking about when you say Amen? Or we say Amun. This represents the hidden power or the hidden essence of God, the unseen essence of quote unquote nature. We call it nature. We don't call it God because God is a German word. And like I say, it has a connotation of a male father figure sitting on high, looking down low, that demands from you constant praise. And when you give it his constant praise, then he rewards you with blessings. See, the African spiritual tradition, I'm not here to knock that. I'm just saying the African spiritual tradition does not work that way, right? In our tradition, this hidden power, you're talking about the hidden power of nature. Since you can't see it, the Africans had to come up with a way for you to understand it. And that way of understanding was given to us in terms of what we call the Netcharu. Can you say Netcharu? Netcharu. Netcharu. The Netcharu are the many expressions of this unseen God, right? So you and I, all of us, are different expressions of nature, and we're nature in human form, right? Water is nature in the form of water. Those are different expressions of this unseen power, right? Amen, Amun. And this was so strong and so dominant in ancient times that all of the people who visited Africa, who had no religion, visited Africa, all these different other races who came into Africa, had no religion. When they left Africa, they went back to their people with a religion, but they never gave you the credit. They never said, we learned this from African people. They created their religions thousands of years after we established these spiritual systems. But they never today admit that they got it from African people, right? The oldest religious book by the so-called Hebrews or the Jews is the Septuagint, right? That was during the time of the second Ptolemaic period. You're talking about 332 BC was the first Ptolemy. Africa, the pyramids were, we call it the mirror. They were already ancient by the time they came up with their first book. We're talking about in the pyramid of Unas, and the pyramid of Unas is filled with spiritual writings, all on the walls and the inside of the pyramids. Pyramids of Unas, you look at it, and it's much, much more ancient than the first foreigners who came and created a religion after they visited Africa, right? But inside of that one pyramid, the pyramid of Unas, you have an accumulation of spiritual writings that if you was to add up all the writings in the Holy Quran, the Bible, and the Torah, and the Buddha, and all the religious writings in the world today, if you was to add them all together, they still wouldn't equal the amount of spiritual writings that are in that one pyramid. And the central figure in that pyramid was Asar. He was one of the central figures, right? Well, who is Asar? Who is Amun? Who is Amun? Amun, in one spiritual story, this is one of the oldest spiritual stories, Amun, he had a wife named Mut, right? And they gave birth to a son. This was an old trinity. It was Amun, it was Mut, and Kanun, their son, right? Now we have another trinity. Anybody else familiar with another trinity story that we had in Africa? Asar, Aset, and Heru. That's the most popular. Asar, Aset, and Heru. The word hero comes from the word Heru. A lot of the words that's used in the English language strangely come from African historical traditional stories. Why is that? And we're supposed to be the savages and the ignorant people, right? Why is it that your language is so interwoven with our words? When I said nature or netcharu, the word nature comes from that word nature. Has a very similar understanding, right? Because the common thread about all African spiritual tradition, we had a deep respect for nature. We felt that we were a part of nature. We are that. Right. There's no separation between us and nature, right? That's how we see ourselves. So the trinity of Asar, Aset, and Heru, in order to give that tradition to your children, we wrap these are cosmic stories about nature and the universe. But in order to give it to your children in every single generation, we wrap these stories, we wrap these physical dynamics dealing with nature, we wrap them into poetic stories that we can give to any generation. And when you became an adult, you learned the science behind the stories, right? So Asar, Aset, and Heru, there was a story about a husband and wife who came into Kemet when Kemet was quote unquote uncivilized, right? Where the people was acting buck wild. And they came in and taught the people principles and values and morals, right? And out of appreciation for these two wonderful people, taught them agriculture, taught them different things. They promoted them to king and queen of the country. And so this couple who became king and queen, this is tied to a common thread in the Kemetic tradition, this cosmology that says that this thing called Nu, remember I asked you, have you ever heard of this word Nu or Noon? Nu or Noon is the origin, according to the African people, of creation. See, in Nu or Noon, that was the state that the Creator or you and I existed, because Nu or Noon is our oldest ancestor. That's us. We once lived in a state of non-physical, we were non-physical. We was in a spiritual state, right? A spiritual state of what they refer to as chaos. We call that Noon. There was no definition. And so when we came out of this state of no definition, no physical chaos, we came into a state of divine order, definition, right? So that transformation from that state of nothingness into the state of living, we call that Ra. We call that Ra. So they put Amun Ra. You know, Amun Ra means that the unknown of power of nature came into the physical form, Ra. Some people thought the sun is Amun Ra. No, the sun is just a symbol because it shines bright and gives you nourishment and energy. And so we say that is a great symbol for Amun, something that provides for you all of these things that the wonderful sun does, right? So in that story they gave to us, this couple came into Kemet, and they taught the people and taught them how to grow crops and things of this nature. They were sending them to the throne. But during this time period when they were celebrating their royalty, there was a period where Asar, who had taught this nation how to live, he was to go travel around the world. He wanted to travel around. Now that's a long story. I'm gonna give you a tidbit of that story. I'm gonna tell you one that's a little shorter. But he wanted to travel around the world and teach the world the same thing. But before he left, they wanted to give a little party for him. And in the party, and they woven in some traditional realities, that in ancient Kemet, they were known for their beers, right? Elaborate beers, sweet tasting beer, different types of beers. So in the story, they gave him this wonderful party. And at this party, everybody is drinking these beers and talking. But the party really followed this magnificent speech that he had given to the nation, crowning, celebrating his achievement, right? And he talked about the brotherhood of man and how we should love one another and all of this. This is an ancient African story, right? And then after that, they had this celebration, and people started to get a little tipsy, at the celebration. And then Asar had a brother by the name of Set, who was a military leader of the country. And Aset had a sister named Nebhet, and she was married to Set, the military leader. But they didn't have any children, right? So at this party, everybody's kind of getting tipsy and everything. The king had got a little tipsy, and he said, well, he asked his sister, and he asked his wife, could you take over the party because I'm feeling a little tipsy and I want to go to my chambers to rest. She said, I got you, babe, I got you. Don't worry about it, go ahead. And so he retired to his chambers, right? Nebhet, the wife of Set, who also had been drinking and everybody had been drinking, having a good time, she got tired and she said, told her sister, which is Aset, I want to retire to my chambers. I feel a little tired, right? And so she did that. And as she went back, she had been reflecting on that magnificent speech that Asar had given to the crowd. And she started to wonder, you know, why can't my husband be like that? So her imagination got the best of her, and she started fantasizing, what would it be like to be with a Sar just for one, like Luther Vandross said, if only for one night. Her imagination got the best of her. And because her and Arset were twin sisters, they were twin sisters, she went into Arset's fragrances and she sprayed Arset's perfume on herself. And then she went and snuck into Sar's chamber. And keep in mind, Arset her husband had never consummated the marriage. They had never had intercourse at this time, right? But Nebhet, she snuck into the chambers, you know, and Sar was passed out. And she, like I say, and I said before, you know, she went into the chambers and pow, you know, and everything happened. So, and being that they were twins, and you know so Sarah, assuming this was his wife.
Y'all ain't been reading up on Kim.
Y'all need to learn about these stories. And so, assuming that this was his wife, they had sex, right? And from that, a lot of chaos took place. You know, a lot of problems took place right after that. So at some point, you know, people began to hear about it, and then the husband, which was Set, who was the military leader and the brother of Asar, heard about what happened. He was furious. You know? So now you're talking about the balance of the nature of the country falling apart, as the country's moving out of balance, right? Because in the traditional story, as it relates to the cosmology, in the cosmology, Ra was born out of Nu, right? But before he can come out of Nu, you had to have definition and differentiation, because there was chaos in Nu, no definition. The ancient Africans called that chaos. So order came out of chaos. So the story had to set up, it provided you with the background of chaos, right? And from the chaos, you came all these wonderful characters, because what Set did, you know, to shorten the story for you, what Set ended up doing was waging a plot to murder his brother. So Set wanted to murder Asar, his brother, who was the king of the nation. And so he solicited the help from people like Sebek, who has his own. And another now region is called Sebek Ra. There's a story of cosmology about Sebek, who was the alligator figure, right? You got these different cosmologies. And so eventually, Set murdered his brother. You may have heard the story. Cut his brother up into 14 pieces and scattered him across the land, right? And then eventually, I'm jumping, you know, for the interest of shortening the story, I said eventually, search for the pieces, put all 14 pieces back together, you know, with the help of the son from her, because they made up, the sisters made up, and that's another part I have to get to when we hear the story again. She stitched the body together, and they wrapped it, and that was the so-called first mummy of ancient Kemet, came from this mythological story. See, what he's trying to say, and what I agree with, African, we love stories. You can teach lessons through stories, right? The tortoise and the hare, all of those are stories. Those are African stories as well. It wasn't about whether or not the rabbit was faster than the turtle. The story was trying to teach you that the race doesn't go to the swiftest, it goes to the one that endures. That was the lesson. So we use these stories. See, we never claimed that our stories was true history. See, now that's when somebody give you a story and tell you a myth and tell you it's history, that's when you're beginning to be lied to. That's right. See, Africans, we embrace beautiful stories to teach lessons and principles in nature. We never lied to you and said that Asar was a real person that rose from the dead. You know what I'm saying? And so this is the beauty of African traditional stories and cosmologies. They're not to embrace the story for the sake. These stories are intergenerational, right? Every generation can benefit from these wonderful stories. But eventually, Asar being murdered, and his wife began, who had never consummated the marriage, she would turn herself into a bird-like figure, and she hovered over his body, and she was able to extract the Shechem from his spirit, meaning that she got impregnated by the spirit of her husband after his death, right? And she became pregnant, and that child that was born was called Heru. Heru, and the word hero stems from Heru, who eventually became the one who put the nation back together and brought Ma'at and balance back to the nation. And it's a long story that explains that as well. So we just want to start to lay out some of these cosmologies to you, brothers and sisters, to stimulate your interest, to say, you know what, let's take another look at our stories. Let's take another look at our people. Let's take another look at the beautiful richness of our African traditions. And you'll find that they're packed with jewels that you can hold on to. And I'll stop there. Thank you very much.
Any questions, comments about anything? Yes.
Pyramid, just a question, the pyramid you talked about, I heard of it, but I've never been in it. Even though I've been to use it. Do they let you in it?
It's not one of the.
They won't let you in it, will they?
I'm not sure. But I know it's not one of the most popular tour.
Did you want to go
I didn't get a chance to go on the pyramid. I went to. I saw the first pyramid, which was by Imhotep. If everybody familiar with Imhotep, he designed the first. That was in Saqqara. Yeah, I don't think all of them they let you go into.
Talk about the particular one you talking
The
about.
Pyramid of Unas. So I think it's accessible, but I don't know if they limit to researchers and scholars or whatever.
Probably do.
Yeah, because a lot those spiritual writings are.
I like your hair. Pretty.
Any more questions about it? You know, because see, and it's just another tidbit. Like for instance, all of the things that other religions borrow from your, like for instance, the birth of Christ, that was taken from the story that dealt with our astrological. One of our stories where we was trying to explain what you saw in the skies, right? When you saw the three kings, you know, in the story of Jesus and the three kings. Are everybody familiar with the relationship with the ancient Kemetic story? Are you familiar with that? Well, in the winter solstice, December the 22nd to the 25th, the days get shorter and shorter until you get to the 22nd, right? In ancient African culture, way before there was any Christianity, Islam, or Judaism, the Africans celebrated this period because they called that the death of the sun, right? The death of the sun, because the days were very short, and they never stopped getting long again to December the 25th. December the 25th, the day got longer by 1 minute. So they called that day the birth of the sun, the S-U-N, of the birth of the sun, right? Of the resurrection of the sun after being dead for 3 days, right? And so the Africans did it. So in the Orion belt, you'll notice there's 3 stars that are in alignment, right? On an angle, right? Pointed toward the star Sirius, which was the bright star that rose up. And they called it rose up during the calendar period of Virgo, right? So the Africans saw this, the sun was born of a virgin based on Virgo's astrological dynamic. This is ancient stuff, brothers and sisters. And so with the 3 stars being in alignment, that's where the Christians got the story of the 3 kings. It was the astrological teachings in ancient Africa much before that, right? So the birth of the sun was on December the 21st, because that was when the days began to get longer by the first minute. Each day, the days got longer by 1 minute each day. So that was the origin of that story, brothers and sisters. And many more stories were taken from bits and pieces of your tradition. So America itself, I got through a picture of this, you know, this is the Washington Monument, right? In Africa, this is referred to as a tekken, right? Tekken is much, you know, they took, when I went to Kemet, there was 2, supposed to be 2 in the entryway of this one building, but they told me the Europeans took one. I think one of them is in Germany, and it's not there anymore. They were fascinated by our tradition. And so this is the greatest symbol in Washington, D.C., right? But this symbol represents the story of Asar and Aset. Because in the Ankh, you know, anybody got the Ankh on? The Ankh represents, I brought it up here.
It's on the wall.
Yeah, it's on the wall, but it represents life. This thing here represents life. Does anybody know about the symbol? Which,
Here it is.
this is the womb of the woman, right? Right, this is fallopian tubes, right? And this is the phallus of the man. When Asar at some point in the spirit realm, they call it the duat, he ascended to the throne. He bonded what they call, he bonded and became, his son empowered him. And this is another story I have to share with you if you come to the class. Through his own son, who through spiritual meditation visited his father in the spirit realm. And through that visitation, his son empowered the father to ascend to the throne in the spirit realm, right? So Asar was resurrected from the dead in the spirit realm. And then the son carried his father's spirit. By the fact they call the son Heru, he's the boat that carries the spirit of Ra on earth. That's you and I. We represent the God in the present. We carry the spirit of our ancestors. See, Asar is always seen as our ancestors. So in our tradition, the ancestors is considered is your God's force, your God's spirit. Meaning you be able to live life based on the higher plane, the spiritual plane. That's what Asar represents. So this monument represents Asar. This represents his phallus that Aset did not have. That's what that symbol represents. And so America uses our symbols, but they don't tell you that they got it from these savage people, right? Our symbols, right? The red, white, and blue that's in their flag. Those are Kemetic colors. Those are the colors in the stars we had in the temples. They constantly borrowing from your tradition while saying you're inferior. So the gig is up. You know, we're discovering who we are. And it's time for us to spread the knowledge. Like he said, this is a leadership class. It's time for us to spread the knowledge to our people and awaken them with the truth of their own spiritual African tradition. Go ahead, brother. You got another question?
Yes, you tell what the Nazis came out with their cross. Is that Lutheran or what is that?
Swastika.
No, I was with the swastika, the one that is
This is swastika. Swastika today. And you know, a lot of the symbols that you see in those traditions are our symbols, but they were corrupted.
yeah.
So it's like, you know, somebody steal a pie from your house, take a few slices and put their finger in it. I don't want that pie. I don't know about you, but I don't want that pie back. I don't want it. You can have it.
Yes,
So-
do you recall though that how the Nazis, not just the swastika, but they also had that type of cross. No, we didn't have the female element.
I know which one you're talking about. They have it on the airplanes. When they have it on the airplane.
I don't know, but I mean, a lot of they were words that,
Well, they had, you know, like I said, they all borrow from our tradition.
right,
But we just want you to be able to, like the brother said, where can you go? Like the story I was telling you about Asar setting in this party and stuff like that. That was the Pertem Aru. You had the transformations of Ra, which talked about another story, where Ra was in a boat traveling, and he was talking about the sun rising in the east and setting in the west. He was in a boat traveling from the east to the west. And he had his right-hand man, which was Tahuti, that represents the spirit of intelligence. They're talking about you and I, every individual life. You are Ra, meaning you are life. Ra means life. In your life, you should always have your intelligence with you. That's what the story was telling us. Tahuti represents the intelligent energy that exists in you. You consult with your intelligence. So Ra asks Tahuti, who are his enemies? And Tahuti responded by saying, you got enemies to the north, enemies to the south, enemies to the west, and enemies to the east. And Ra asked Tahuti, his intelligence, what should I do about it? He said, call on your son. Who is his son? And this is a different story. Heru Bekwudet. His son was a warrior. He called on Heru Bekwudet. And upon the instructions of Tahuti, the general, which represents your intelligence. See, these are not real, this is not real history. These are mythological stories. But you're supposed to get something out of it. He called on his son. And it's, you know, let's get serious. This is not a passive religion. He called on his son, and with his son, he slaughtered his enemies to the north. He slaughtered his enemies to the west, to the east, and to the south. And he brought their body parts to prove that they were taken care of. And through that, Ra was pleased, and he was able to make his journey, complete his journey to the west, which means the sunset. So in our tradition, every morning was a resurrection. That's where the word, the resurrection, come from. See, the sun rose from the dead. They was talking about the real sun coming over the sun god. See, we had a resurrection every morning. It was a resurrection, we called it Kepleri, the resurrection of the sun. So there's no further questions. This is really the extensive depth to our wonderful spiritual tradition, brothers. I like those stories.
It was interesting about, you asked about the swastika is what you're making reference to, is most things, or all things, that are deviated from our original stories, symbols, they all go back if you can just keep the basics down pat. For example, the swastika, if you look at the symbol, it deviates into corners, and you have what was considered the corners of quadrants. And the quadrants, we have 4, and then you have 90 degrees. They form an L, which it consists of a 90 degree, and then 90 times 4. We know 9 times 4 is 36. Add the 0 is 360 degrees, which is synonymous of the sun, the symbol of the sun. So no matter what they try to do to deviate, manipulate, or change something, they have to start from the basic foundation. So they can't change anything because all of it goes back to the synonymous of the sun. Same thing as names, all the Moorish names and things like that. Moor means black. A lot of names deviate or go back to the aspect of the word black, which is an infinite term. It's not necessarily a corrupt term like the definitions.
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
And
So
that-
don't you
you
think
see
we ought to
that's-
start with younger kids? I mean, like, we weren't
Absolutely.
taught that as kids,
That's right.
but I believe if we start with our young kids, I think that our black race will be more powerful because our kids are coming up to know who they really are.
That's the key. What she just said is the key. Because we were educated by our elders. And this world is in a competition. What's Napoleon said this. Napoleon said this, and I think he speaks for a lot of white people. And I hope you're not uncomfortable, because some people are more uncomfortable when I talk about white folks. When white folks ain't here, then white folks would be. He said this. He said, when he was dealing with Haiti, and the Haitian Revolution, when the Haitians were whooping everybody's butt who came to the shores, right? They told, because the Haitians produced more sugar money for France than they was the richest country in the world based on the enslavement the Haitians were doing and growing sugar for them. Because Europe fell in love with sugar. This man said, it ain't even about money no more. When he was fighting the Haitians, the black people, he said, you know what, it's not even about money no more. He said, this is about stopping the rise of the black man in the world forever. And I believe Thomas Jefferson, all of them believed that. Now, these people end up paying reparations. When they got their freedom and got their independence, they had to pay France reparations all the way up until the 20th century for not making us slaves. Reparations for the money's wages lost for not enslaving me. So when will we see the day that they got to give that money back to our people? Well, that cannot happen unless we empower ourselves. Because no reparation can be enforced unless you're strong enough to enforce it. So you're right. It begins with African-centered education. We'll have to have our own schools and teach our own babies and raise our children, and then have our own secondary schools, own colleges, where we can teach our own people
And
to be free people.
we see the connection between the Native Americans of our ancient religion, the ancient Americans. We read the book Ancient Futures, I believe that's the name of it, where he talks about how these changes, is like the things you see happening now, they call them thunders, where you have the earth changes that's going on. And you also see, when you talk about the swastika, you see the Native American has a swastika in the field. A lot of times it's going in the opposite direction than the Nazis had. You remember that?
even with the swastika, that originated, they didn't take that wasn't their original symbol. That originated from northern Africa, one of the most spiritual concentrated areas in Africa. That's where the swastika originated from. And more so when we speak about, you touch base on the new, where we can't see forms and things like that, and then we get into the chemical element as far as the word chemistry is concerned, it's spelled with a C. We have to invite our language, the consonants start with a K because the C actually is not a consonant sound, and Kemet means black. So when you're starting off with teaching children, you can relevate the beginning with them. They became a chemical form, which is a chemical form spelled with a K, not a CH like they're taught in school, these westernized schools. And it means black man, black origin, and black God, per se. But when you talk about God, God has a lot of different references. In a business aspect, God is spelled G-D period, meaning good. And that's a worldwide communication.
And you spell it, Africa with the K.
See, I think Dr. Karenga, man, I went to a lecture he did in Atlanta one time, he talked about the woman aspect. And he was talking about different aspects of the creator. See, he went to one of the guys went to the higher God and asked him about a project, and the guy said, you failed because you didn't have a female principal in it. And he said, never leave out the female principal. Now go back and try it again. But he broke it down, what I'm saying, because he know all them stories from Kemet.
Kemet is the main thrust of Kemet, or African tradition, is balance, truth, and justice, right? Yeah. And that means ma'at. The word that is ma'at. And ma'at is symbolized with a feminine energy. And all of the forces in nature that they personified into human personalities or archetypes, they all have consorts, meaning that we believe in marriage. They all had a spouse. Ma'at, which you always hear about Ma'at, but you don't hear too much about her consort. Ma'ah is her husband, right? And even before we came in the state of Nu, we had 8 spirits that existed in the spirit of nature. Before the first physical things came to existence, there were 8 spirits, and all of them had a consort. 4 male, 4 female. So we always had that balance. So it's very important for you to understand, if African families are to be successful in anything we do, it has to be balanced. If you carry that, that's what that scale represents. It ain't talking about after you die all the time. It's talking about in every single decision you make as a human being, you need to put it on a scale and see if it has the right balance. So with that said, I know our time is not unlimited.
I got it on my log. I don't know where it is.
So you on the club, there's a couple of more stuff like that.
No more further questions?
Any further questions?
I have a question. Where did the other goddesses, the Orishas, like Yemaya, how did they come about? Real quick.
You say how they came about.
Were they in the creation story or?
Yeah, and there's a lot of versions. There's one version that says that when Olodumare wanted to come and bring life here, there's one creation story that said Yemoja was already here. Yemoja was here, she was here in the water, but she wasn't doing too much, right? So Olodumare had to prove that he, see I said he, that's that's that old stuff, right? It's still in me. Trying to eradicate it. What I'm trying to say is that Olodumare, I gotta show Yemoja that I'm Olodumare, right? So Olodumare sent a Jamo, the comedian. So a Jamo go down there to Yemoja and say, okay, well look, and we understand you wanted to have this competition about you know, colors and this and that, and make all of these clock, or she could tie dye, and she made all these different kind of colors and patterns and things, right? So she's showing all she can do with that, and everything she did, JMO just came and laid next to it, and the JMO would immediately turn to that color. You know, a chameleon is a chameleon, right? You lay a chameleon on green, it turn green. You lay it on brown, it turn brown, and on and on and on. It'll turn reddish brown. So everything that the chameleon, everything that Yemoja brought out, then the chameleon could immediately become those colors. And so Yemoja conceded that, okay, Oladumare is, Oladumare run this, I ain't running nothing here. So, back to the beginning, even before that, it's like, that was Oladumare, and then Oladumare made all of these other ones, the female ones, the male ones, and sometimes there are several roles of each one of them, okay? Just like there's several roles of Ogun, there's several roles of Oshun, there were several roles of Yemoja, meaning that, for example, Ogun is the one that primarily deals, there's this one role that he primarily deals with the agrarian kind of stuff. Then there's the one that deals with the warriorship kind of stuff. Then there's the one that deals more so with the blacksmith kind of stuff, where they all aren't specialists in each one of those. They're all relative. Metal is the common denominator. Just like Oshun deals with love, sex, and all these kind of things. And with all of these things, as we know, is always negative and positive, however you want to look at it, going back to that polarity thing. You got that negative side, you got that positive side. Oshun at her best brings love. At the concept of it at its worst, it's the hope. You understand? Using the same principalities though. You understand? You're using the same principalities to get the thing done, but it's one is using negatively, the other is using positive. And that exists in all things. It's like a sharp knife. You can use a sharp knife to cut us a positive way, or I could, you know, cut my brother or sister trying to get what they use it negatively. Everything has that duality kind of thing, that negative positive that we recognize. And Orish, they got it's the same there too. So all of them already created all of them, and then they, what they do. Yes.
You mentioned Yemen Ya.
Yeah.
I was watching a show, I don't know how many years ago, on Channel 9, early, like 4 o'clock in the morning, travel show. And then the man was talking about Yemen Ya, how the Africans used to pray in Brazil. They prayed to Yemen Ya when they had to go out and fish and different things. But when my husband went down there for the job, I told him to bring me a dial back. And Europeans have changed Yemen Ya to be white, blonde, with blue eyes. And I said, don't bring me a white one. Go find the black folks and bring me a black one. So the white one had to take him in there, and he said, I can't bring this doll back to my wife. We need to go find somebody look like me. But they had them.
Yeah.
I mean, it just, like you say, teach your children history, and it's important to let them know that, you know, they're changing everything that they can. You know, they push the white one in front, you know, but it's, you know.
Most definitely. When they say Yemanya, usually that lets us know it's coming from the Western Hemisphere. Like Yemanya is how they say it in Brazil, in Cuba. I don't know how they say it in Brazil. They say if they say Yemanya, I guess that's Portuguese, Spanish kind of way. But right, in Nigeria, where or Nupe, she said to originally come from Nupe, it is Yemoja. All right, it's Yemoja. It's just like they say in Cuba, they'll say Ilegua. is Elegba. And in Ghana, it's Legba.
What does
Yeah,
that mean?
yeah. When I was in Oakland, California, and I heard they was having this Yemoja activity, and I went. My feelings was hurt so bad.
Oh,
I mean, man, I walked through the door. They got a piece about this tall of Yemoja, and she's, you know, blue and got all this beautiful blue dress flowing out. Because in Nigeria, she's a river. When she crossed and came over here in the Western Hemisphere, she became to represent the ocean, especially the top of the ocean, and Olokun is the one that is at the bottom. Mr. Neil and Yemoja is at the top. So I look at that, and her face is pale, and I'm like, Then I walk into the place where they had an activity at, and it just got worse and worse. All these white women out here, they got these dancing, they dancing, Yemoja, and I'm like, and I forced myself to sit there and watch it, because sometimes you have to force yourself to sit there and watch and know completely what they doing and to the extent they doing it.
right, you're right.
I wanted to go as soon as I saw the thing when I walked in there. But I said, nah, let me just sit up here and stay here. But the worst of the worst was when a black woman came out and joined and if they're just doing that thing, they got our stuff and they doing that thing, they cooperating like that, that's bad enough. But the African participation in it, that makes it so dangerous, because we become the ones that validate them doing this mess. The fact that they got one of us dance like, we know it's okay.
But she might not
She
know.
might not know.
She might not know, but they know. They she heard.
Right.
She heard.
No, she should.
You understand? It is, and the internet is a very
But you know, like I'm saying.
dangerous and plus place to get stuff from. I want to just say this too about some things when we start talking about our spirituality, that and anything dealing with us, there's so much there, and that is especially online, that is so awful. There's one powerful in Haiti, we call it Haiti. There's this powerful Lord, the equivalent to Orisha, that is Urzule Dantor. Urzule Dantor was a fierce warrior that was one of the Lord that helped the people with the Haitian Revolution. If you look up Urzule Dantor on the internet, one of the things it will say about her that these people have put there, these people, that she is the patron of lesbianism.
Really?
Yes. I went straight to a Haitian that I know. I said, man, you know this and stuff? I said, you ever had anything like that? He said, I know Kunama, they get this stuff. So, the sources that we have to get our information from should be many. They should, first of all, be African sources, and then we need to cross-reference the African sources. And pay close attention to the words they use and how they say stuff.
Isn't there a white guy who's writing a lot of Orisha stuff?
Extremely amount of, but the worst of that is even the African priests that have initiated them into our systems.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've seen that.
Why are they doing it?
Money.
Well, yeah, I know.
From Nigeria to even over here.
And this
What
is
do you know
what's
about
funny.
the Akata witch?
I was in a class taught by Aya, who used to come here. She had his book, and she was saying, you know, oh, this guy, he's really good. You know, he knows
Was it
his
Nemar?
stuff.
You remember his name? Nemar.
I don't know. He's a Jew.
You know me.
He's
Nemar.
a Jew.
Nemar.
But so she was validating him, and then we were doing the divinations with the cowrie shells, and what was in the book was incorrect. And she kept going, you know, this is, you know. Then she was like, oh, well, we're not going to use the book. She had just validated that this person was. So he's putting misinformation in his book, and we buying it up like a, you know, the
Some of us spending
brainwashed
up
people we are.
I've heard that some of the white folks are spending $5,000 to be initiated, and the chiefs are.
And we need to
Oh, that's
start
taking them
cursing
That's
those
right.
people
Binding
who are
rings.
That's
doing that.
I had a question about, Shango.
Mhm.
Could you speak to that principle?
Shango is the legendary fourth king of Oyo, a part of the Yoruba kingdoms, and Shango has come. I mean, Shango is broad, and there's a lot of roads to Shango, but he is said to be the fourth king of the Oyo Empire. Shango's principles is this strong, masculine, male virility kind of thing. He's Shango, like the son of the sun. Shango is brilliantly it's symbolic of life itself. There's this one story where they tell, because Shango is also on his because like I said, there's a lot of dualities here where some things they can be negative and very positive. Okay, so Shango, one of his negative aspects, he can be a womanizer. All right, so Shango got these women. So Shango got went to see somebody, one of his cohorts, and then he tried to get back home, but this was Oya, but before Oya left, and Oya oversees the cemetery, the Egon. So Oya had the Egon as skeletal forms to come and guard the place so Shango couldn't get out. Shango so much symbolizes and representing life, and he can't go out. He can't cross paths. He can't do it. He can't cross that way. So then they sent another one that was shown to get rid of the Egon so that Shango could leave. But I said all that to exemplify his symbolism as just as light and life. He is something from when they say the thunder rose, the thunder and lightning, that's like Shango. Okay, Shango represents transformation. It's fire. All right, so he has a lot of different principalities and roles. His colors is usually red and white.
Can you speak on the Akata Witch book that's written by one of the Nigerian sisters?
A Nigerian sister?
Right.
Nigerian sister.
Brother Johnson, he said the Akata means white witch.
Well, that's a kata, that's a negative term that some of the Africans use to describe us.
Well, in this particular case,
It's
Johnson was
something
saying,
that might not be what he talking about.
yeah. They were talking about, either the person is one who has that like Michael Jackson disease,
Very Lago?
yeah, very ligo, or else they say a white witch. Maybe. I didn't read the book. I just got the cover of it. That's all.
I don't know that book. The best book I know by a sister is the Yoruba religion. That's the name of the book. And this sister, she currently lives in California. All right, and I see them think about her name right now. But the name of the book is Yoruba Religion and Philosophy. It's a green book. She's on the front and in some divination poses. And it's a good book. And I met the sister. She's a very good sister. And at this point, we have begun to see who's real and who's not real by what they say and how they say it. So yeah, but that's one, the Yoruba religion and philosophy. And I think of the sister's name, and I'll give it to you. But that's the best one I've seen by a woman. Most of the books I've seen are by men, but that's the best one I've seen by a woman. It's a good book too.
This is she gave a presentation at the main library. So many months ago. I didn't make it to the presentation, but someone I know, passed that information to me about the woman, the writer. And Johnson had, Johnson was able to get the book for me, and my daughter is in the book club. I thought that might be something nice for her to read. Myself, I got more books than I can read right now.
Lucia, I know Dr. Karinga talked about that. Lucia, how you pronounce it? That's the book of what?
That's the book that Dr. Malala Karenga wrote.
Oh, that's his personal book?
That's the book he wrote.
Oh, that's the name
That's a
of his
translation.
That's the name of it.
Is that a translation?
It's a
of-
book about the principles, the collection of the principles, the values of our African tradition.
book? Oh, okay,
Yeah,
but he just calls it Lucia.
that's the name of the book. the Hussar.
When you say that's a translation of some of our ancient texts?
Well, really, it's a concentration of the values, African values, across the continent. From
It's
different-
similar to like the Ten Commandments and all those things. It's similar to like the Bible and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
It's just a kind of thing.
yeah, positive affirmation.
They use it over there at Ray Hagen's church a lot. Our tradition is
They not
very
on
good.
conspiracy.
Cool. Questions? All right, thank you. Sante Sana, everybody.
It's gonna be a part two of this.
Deep story. He got to figure out what else he want to do.
This is heavy.
Right. Yeah, to be continued.
Get a buzz over here. I can make that same mistake. May I have permission to speak? Well, ain't one person over here older than me. I think I'm older than everybody. Man, that's what I'm about to say, man. So
Yeah, I got a few.
we have to
Yeah, brother Al, too.
come here with open mind, willing to learn, because we have some savers in here, right? And who don't know what that means? All right. Saber means teachers. And the name of this place is Sabayet. So you're in the right place. We are purveyors of wisdom, or wisdom teachers. And that came from nobody but Brother Al. Brother Al is, I asked him some years ago, he was with the, what was you with, Brother Al?
ASCAC,
Aztec.
Associated with
And
Study
he
of
was
Classical.
using that. And I said, Brother Al, I said, what did that mean? So he hit me with the knowledge. He told me what it meant. He said, I asked him, I said, can I use that? He said, yeah, you can use it. We ain't got it, we ain't got it step.
Yeah,
Yeah, you can use it.
Brother Al calls them out.
You can use it. I said, well, once I branded it, I said, that means nobody else can use it no more.
And that's good, because the white folk have been starting to take our stuff and
That's right.
copyright
That's
it.
right. So we got that branded. So when you come up in here, be prepared to learn something. Now we got several people in here can be able to teach on any given subject that they can teach on. Now we got Clayfa, we got this brother here, that we're gonna get you on this podium, let you teach some that knowledge you know.
Who? My brother here.
Brother just said brother and not another.
But anyhow, I'll leave that alone because he's not ready to do that. I'm gonna get you up here too. Then.
Okay.
Cause you've been around a while, you know a few things.
Been up there, but she ain't finished.
Oh my God.
That's right.
Just like you didn't,
That's right.
he ain't gonna never finish Urugu.
But we all family here. And this information is part of our leadership training. In order to go out here and talk to anybody about anything, you got to know where you come from. You got to know your culture. And the person you go out there and talk to, they can feel you if you're coming with the truth and with knowledge that they don't know. They can come tell you when you come up there like that, you get the they look at you and say, but you hit them with something profound to make them think, they're going to be falling behind you. Mama Collect knows when we go to Africa, and our brothers and sisters over there, if you get to talking to them, they're all behind you. They follow all behind you because they want to know. They don't get taught this. They get the European, I mean the real Europeanized education. We get the watered down version here. There, they pump them in there. They pump them with it. And with the Jesus Christ. That's simultaneously. So, they are definitely knowing that we're waking up. Because they have moved faster on their program. Every time you make one step here, they put 3 or 4 out there. You know. But what I do know, and I've been told, and it's been repeated all the time, we are the Alpha and Omega. There's nothing they can do about it. There's nothing they can do about it. But we have to reach the people that out there and let them know this. And how we got to do it? We have to think about it. We got to have think tanks to bring the ones that the warrior, the real warrior. Now we got our, what you call our intellectuals. And we do need our intellectuals. We do need them. But it ain't about nothing, you ain't got them warriors. You ain't got them real warriors. Yeah, there's nothing you can do but stay stagnant.
Yeah, you can't use the 2 ones on the high horse.
No, a lot of us, we including myself sometimes, you might be thinking that we got egos. And like, I always use this. Now, we've been traumatized, we all know that.
Yeah.
And we really haven't never addressed that. So we learn all this stuff, and we get in certain situations, boom! That cracker jumped right out. What are you gonna do? You got to live here. You know what I'm saying? He jumps out and then you catch him. He's, oh man, I just do that. You know.
But Kanama did that today, but he said he.
No, but it's true. It's true. It's in us. Until we start realizing this is one of the sessions that we have to clear this up, to get rid of this tribalization. And the more sessions we have like that, and the further we move away from our enslavement, the easier that it comes to us. You know, the closer our brothers and sisters was back there, they was a lot easier to control. Now we get down here, our wife wanted with long range on us, boy. They pulling everything out. They pulling everything out, but they can't stop nothing. They cannot stop nothing because of what? Why? You have caused so much foolishness. You done did all this stuff to me, all of it. You done dragged me down like this. And what I supposed to do? I'm coming back. You're not allowed to reproduce yourself. Don't we have to have a big gun, do we? Although we are equipped with it. Now, you have to, you have to read between that now. My eye is so, as we know, that it's going to balance things off. What goes up, comes down. But we got to be prepared too. Because when we ain't ready for that joker, we going somebody else going to be up there, we be doing it again. Because our mind didn't get right. You know, so I appreciate you. Appreciate you. We have this brother been with us 4 or 5 years now. The best kept secret of Sabayet ever had. You can come up here and learn this stuff. Free. Don't cost you nothing. Don't cost nothing. All day we ask for a little bit of a little gas, a little water, you know, a little toilet paper. You know, this is free. This is free. But we gotta have a way to get people in here to get this stuff. And I gotta have somebody come behind me to continue on, cause I'm getting up there, mama.
You're not up there
Not a
yet.
coach to get up there.
I've
But
been
I
doing
feel
this-
good about what I
When you
do.
get to 60 years, okay, that's how
Get
long
to
I've been. When you get to 60 years and you
your
can
next
talk to me
birthday
about
be
it, that's how
70.
long I've been doing it.
All right then. All right then. Let's get Sister Hot. Sister Warriors has been on the front line for 60 years. You know, it's a lifetime thing. It's not like you get into it and you get out of it. It's forever. Brother, I sure appreciate you taking on this task. And then this brother came right along with you. Whatever you come up with, you want to feed us, we're hungry. We don't have to have chicken all the time, you know? So tell your friends when we have our next cultural seminar or teaching or whatever you want to call it, tell them come on in and get some of this knowledge. It's free. Most of the people that comes in here, I'm surprised they ain't here today. You know, this is, well, you know what? I'm getting on it.
Oh, you talking.
I know I'm doing a talk. That's what they tell me in Africa. You talk. But here's the thing. Now, if we concentrate more on ourselves, I mean, really concentrate on ourselves, and like we learn that this hate stuff over on this side, it weighs you down. You know what that is. You know it. You keep it where you can deal with it. But get yourself in order. You understand what I'm saying? Get yourself in order. Because if you done bogged down and you pick up a book, this white boy wrote down, Behold the Pale Horse. They killed him. Because he was giving information. We got to seek out those ones like that. They give that information because they got some stuff that we don't even know. If they kill us, we ain't lost nothing. But we got the information. We got the information. But that's just the way it is. We got to seek those
Oh
out.
my goodness.
Yeah,
If it's all up under cover, you get them. You
yes.
understand?
There's some browns out there.
Like The Color of Law is another book.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. But if we close our minds, say, I ain't reading that because the white one wrote that.
That's right.
We don't lock ourselves out. There's some information that can come quickly, and we'll get it, but it might take a longer period of time to have somebody just, boom, give it to you. So I just said we gotta keep our third eye. You know, this war is we gotta get in the trenches. We got to use them. Don't we? We got to use them. I don't want to, but I use them for 50 years. I'm a free black man. I've been inside my I took his money and did this.
That's right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Blueprint.
I took that money and did this.
Yeah.
He dogged me, but I said, I got a plan. I'm gonna teach my brothers and sisters for what that white boy did to me. Boom! Every time he did that, I took the money. Okay. Here's you, brother.
Yeah.
You know, so
Put them under the jail.
yeah.
Like what Haitians say.
I died before.
He said, fall
I
off
stood
the
up
floor.
in Vietnam, boy. They had me dead. But I rose and still to fight again. All right, folks. Appreciate everybody. Thanks for coming out. Make sure you tell everybody that we got some
You
dynamic
got the
people here.
donation box.
Oh, I forgot to do that. I said, we got Maybe we can get some gas or something. You ain't got to put that in there, but you know. We got to get the brother some gas or something.
You passed it earlier.
Yeah, that's another guy. we have multiple people. We have multiple people. We have to give them stuff.
I put that.
I ain't got to have that.
Behold the pale horse.
Behold the pale horse.
Behold the pale horse.
That's best route, brother.
You want that book?
I put on.
Just keep passing it, we'll just pass it around.
That's once again, let's get us brothers, both of these brothers and brothers up here.
Girl Scout cookies,
Put
anybody
that
want?
hand out.
Now you come in there,